welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm excited to be back doing another video. If you guys have been watching my planets in profile, I've been talking to you guys about each and every one of the 12 zodiac signs and the houses and their meaning. So if you guys like this content, you want to see more of it, make sure you click the bell button below, subscribe to the channel so you're alerted as to when we have new videos. We're here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. We've got horoscopes, new and full moon reports, and much, much more. Consider joining my memberships to support my content as a full-time content creator. I would appreciate it. And make sure you give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Leave me a comment below and let me know, where is Taurus in your chart, and do you have any of the placements that we talk about today? I just want to let you guys know also, if you want to, check out my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. I actually teach astrology. I teach a beginner's 101 course, study at your own pace, over 18 hours of content and instruction so you can learn all about your natal chart. So you can find that at beyondtheveiltarot.com. All right, so we've already gotten Aries out of the way. This is going to be the second video, and it's going to be a bit of a mishmash. We're going to talk about Taurus in profile, and we're going to talk about the second house. So if you stay tuned, I will take you guys through all of the different planets in Taurus and also planets in the second house. So today we're going to be talking about Taurus. Obviously, look at this glorious Taurus stellium taking place today. You guys are going to be feeling this over the next week or two, but I figured this is a good time to make this video with the moon in its exaltation. So Taurus, it's known as the second sign of the zodiac. It's ruled by Venus, and it is an earth element. It's fixed in its quality, and it is basically known as one of the Venusian archetypes of the zodiac alongside Libra. Now, if you guys know anything about Taurus, it's about creature comforts, what tastes good, feels good, smells good, but it goes beyond that as well. It's about what is natural, what's earthly, and everything that is about value and possessions. Now, the birthstone that's associated, or the metal that's associated with Taurus would be the emerald for May. If you happen to be an April Taurus, obviously you're gonna get the diamonds, and copper. So copper has associations with Taurus. Taurus rules the throat and the neck. That's what they're connected to, as well as the tonsils. And colors that are associated with Taurus are pastels like blues, greens, and pinks. Now, when we think about what Taurus energy rules, Taurus rules things like the establishment, churches, universities, agriculture, professions like politics, banking, anything connecting to the arts like music or dance, beauty, retail, fashion, and restaurants. Taurus is associated with what we consume. So what we're buying, what we're spending, what we're collecting, what we're eating, all of that stuff is connected to Taurus. Now, if you guys didn't know, Taurus, actually, the word Taurus comes from Latin toro, connected to the bull. And like I said, it's the second sign of the zodiac, at least here in the Western kind of, tropical zodiac wheel. And it's connected to spring, actually, at the height of, at springtime. So when we think about the fixed signs, they hold the energy of any particular season. So while Aries here in the Northern Hemisphere kicks off the astrological new year and also spring, Taurus really kind of holds on and maintains that energy. Venus is ruled by day, Taurus is ruled by Venus by day, and at night it's ruled by the moon. That's why it's exalted in Taurus. And Taurus has been recognized in the sky as the bull. So you can actually see that. It's been known of at least since the early Bronze Age. And it's really interesting because apparently the bull was seen first by ancient Sumerians around 3000 BC. And then was later recorded by the Babylonians. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Babylonian astronomers connect Taurus to actually be the first sign of the zodiac. So if you follow that practice of astrology, that's the first sign. What else? For Babylonian astronomers, it was the first sign, and the bull was also the first sign for the early Hebrews, who called it Alpef, as in A, or the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So why is Taurus connected to or celebrated in the spring? Well, Taurus coincides with calving season. So the bull, like its ancestor, the wild bull, is a potent symbol of strength and fertility. Whereas Leo the lion represents wild strength, Taurus represents domesticated animals. Think farm animals. It's connected to controlled strength, as well as all kinds of energies that are associated with life and growth and abundance. Anything connected to like farming has its associations with Taurus. But when we think about where this comes from, like in ancient like traditions and what we see dating back thousands and thousands of years, apparently there was paintings that were found of bulls that were in the La Croix caves in France, thought to date from 15,000 BCE. Apparently, the most famous section of these caves in France has a hall depicting 4 black bulls on the wall. One of the bulls is as big as 5.5 or almost 17 feet long, 5.5 meters, 17 feet long. And it's one of the oldest known forms of like cave art. So you see like this massive bull. Some of you guys might know it. It's like a really famous picture. But bull worship is seen throughout many different religions and belief systems throughout history. It's thought to have come, or I guess gradually migrated westward from the Celtic Druids. So we see that the Celtic Druids had festivals at least 2,000 years ago, and there is archaeological evidence of bull worship near Newcastle and York in northern England and the UK. Now, when we think about other religions and practices, many of you guys may be familiar with Buddha, right? Well, Buddha was actually born on a full moon in Taurus. So he had a sun in Scorpio, moon in Taurus. And Buddha's birthday is celebrated at the Veskek festival. And this year it's actually going to be celebrated on the day of the full moon on May 23rd. That's based off of the Vedic calendar, but still, when we think about various like Asian culture and ancient traditions, yeah, we see bull worship as like a really common thing, especially throughout India and Southeast Asian countries, including Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Singapore. So that's kind of cool to kind of see that bull be seen throughout all of these cultures and worshipped and seen as something that is very fertile, very beautiful, life-giving, and something that deserves some kind of worship. Taurus loves that, right? They need a little bit of appreciation. Now let's talk a little bit about the sign of Taurus and what this particular sign represents. Now, when we look at astrology, we're looking at the moment that the sun actually enters into this sign. So usually Taurus season is going to start somewhere around April 20th through May 20th every year. And like I said, the bull is the symbol of Taurus, and it's known for qualities such as stability and perseverance. Because bulls are known for being steady and determined, much like Taurians who are known for their reliability, their patience, their persistence, sometimes their stubbornness, right? But they are people who see tasks through to the end, no matter how long it takes. And that's that fixed energy that you see through Taurus that is about calm, stable, consistent kind of building. Now, we also think of strength and power, right? We think of bulls or oxes as symbols of, something that is strong and capable of being able to pull weights or being able to kind of really get a lot of work done. So just as the bull is physically strong, Tauruses are known for their inner strength and ability to endure difficult situations, and generally with a pretty loving nature. They're grounded, strong-willed, and determined, and often this leads to success in their endeavors. Similar to other earth signs, they're very focused on productivity and being able to achieve some kind of physical, tangible goal. Now, yes, they can be a little resistant, they can be a little stubborn, and I think this is mirrored in their tendency to be resistant to change and hold on to their opinions and their beliefs very strongly. They tend to be a little bit more conservative or really fixed in terms of like their value systems or their beliefs, especially when it comes to physical, tangible things like money, resources, and food. Fixed signs don't like making changes. It's not in their nature. They know how to kind of stay steadfast in what works for them. But sometimes I think the stubbornness can actually be a source of strength, and it gives them the ability to stand their ground. So when we think of like, you know, the bulls running and, you know, like that force of all of those bulls being able to kind of take on or challenge people, that is very much the energy of Taurus. But they're also known for being very calm and peaceful. Because they have that connection to Venus, you know, while bulls can have a tendency to be aggressive when provoked, they're generally pretty calm and peaceful creatures. So similarly, Tauruses are known for their calm demeanor and peaceful nature, and they can also exhibit a fierce temper, but generally when they're provoked. If you guys think about like cows, maybe it's just me. I live in Texas, so I see a lot of them now, but most of the time they're just hanging out, eating their grass, enjoying life, taking things slow. But it's not until you see them needing to be kind of corralled or brought into an area that they kind of like dig their heels in a little bit and they don't want to be bothered. So they definitely like to maintain some sense of stability and structure. They like comfort. So when you disrupt that, they can get a little upset. But lastly, I think that they're really known for their loyalty. So they're loyal, they're very dependable in their nature, similar to you know, cows. Tauruses are known for being very loyal and dependable in relationships and friendships. They're the kind of people who will stick by their loved ones through thick and thin. And also they have a tendency to, because they become so used to consistency and liking what they like, when they have a relationship or a job or a partnership or a financial situation that works for them, that's reliable, they will stick to it. So they'll have a tendency to be a little possessive or protective of their people. Now let's talk a little bit about positive and negative traits for the sign of Taurus. Positive for me, obviously loyal, dependable, we kind of touched on that. Because they're unwavering with their loyalty, they're reliable, you can count on them, especially when they make commitments. If they say they're gonna do something, generally they will stick to it. But also, like I said, patience. Patience is something that Tauruses are really known for because they have a patient nature. And they have a tendency, because they're ruled by Venus, to really want to handle situations with grace. They are excellent sometimes when it comes to negotiations. They're really great when it comes to you know, business relationships, financial relationships, and they really see the value in taking their time and building something kind of brick by brick until they have something solid and strong. They're hardworking and very dedicated and diligent in their work, and they oftentimes strive for success and stability. They're also known for being very sensual because they're ruled by Venus. So they can have a deep appreciation for beauty, comfort, and the finer things in life. Generally, Taurus tends to be very practical. That's because they are a fixed earth sign. So they make decisions that are based off of logic and reason. Sometimes they're going to make decisions off of like what's the simplest or what's going to be the easiest or what's possibly going to produce the most with the least amount of work. But definitely very practical when it comes to making life decisions. They're also very nurturing because Taurus is known for their caring nature and their ability to extend support to their loved ones, okay? So being ruled by Venus, they can be very affectionate, very calm, very loving, and like wanting to nurture and see things grow, right? We think of like agriculture and farmers being archetypes kind of connected to this sign, and they see the importance of being able to water and sunshine and kind of tend to something to see it turn into like a physical, you know, something that they've produced. And also very determined. This is one of the signs that I would say when they put their mind to something, they get it done, no matter how long it takes. Taurus individuals are extremely determined and persistent in achieving their goals. Now for the more challenging traits connected to Taurus, definitely stubborn, okay, and I can say that as a fixed sign. Fixed signs have a tendency to be stubborn, but Tauruses I find that are probably one of the more so stubborn, I guess, like signs, and primarily because they're resistant to change, right? They want to do something that's going to be a tried and true method, something that's going to be safe, and they can have a tendency to have a hard time getting out of their creature comforts or out of their their usual routines. Sometimes we can also see, because of the darker side of the Venus connection, that Taurus placements can be very materialistic. It's not uncommon to see Taurus placements or second house placements that are very focused on value, accumulation, brands, labels, things like that. So they can have a tendency to put too much emphasis on material possessions and also financial security. They do have a tendency to be a little possessive. I always laugh because Taurus placements will have a tendency to be like, that's mine. And that comes from that tendency with the Taurus second house energy of wanting to accumulate or wanting to hoard. So possessiveness can kind of come up with physical things, also with food, relationships, and expecting a lot of attention and affection from their partners. This goes along with being stubborn, but also uncompromising, which is kind of ironic because Tauruses, in my opinion, can have a tendency to actually strike a pretty decent deal with people. But I see them sometimes as being inflexible and unwilling to compromise. Like I said, kind of digging their heels in a little bit. This can lead to conflicts in personal and professional relationships. There can be a tendency to see things in a very black and white manner and not be willing to budge when it comes to their beliefs or their possessions. Something else that I've noticed about Taurus placements as well is that they can become resentful. That is something that happens. We do see that on the Taurus-Scorpio axis, so it's not limited purely just to Taurus. But if they feel wronged, Taurus individuals have a tendency to hold grudges and resentment for long periods of time. I think this stems from that axis of Scorpio and Taurus where, you know, Venus is connected to Taurus. They're very loving, right? Scorpio, Mars. So it can be a little bit more combative. But because they're so gentle and generous generally in their nature, if they feel like they've been done wrong, there can be a tendency to hold grudges and not want to kind of let things go. So with a dog with a dog with a bone, they'll just kind of hold on to something. And I hear a lot of people talk about Taurus as being lazy. I don't know if I agree with that completely, but I will say that you're going to hear them say self-care, you know, or I deserve it, or I got myself something, you know. But laziness, I've noticed that Tauruses will go through periods of just like working nonstop, and because they work hard, they also relax hard as well. So they will go through spurts of like, you know, working long hours or days in a row, and then they just want to like veg out and do the face mask and eat the snacks and hang out and not want to kind of leave the house. Yes, we can see them do this, but generally this is like an overworked, overstimulated Taurus if they're exhibiting these qualities. But they can go through periods of laziness. They can go through periods of procrastination, especially if they're feeling unmotivated or uninspired. Now let's talk about the archetypes connected to Taurus. When I teach astrology, I like to talk about the archetypes because it really helps us put the sign to like an archetype in the real life, in real world, so we can really kind of like connect to it in our lives and we can see the zodiac kind of come to life out in the world. So the number one thing that you're going to see with, you know, Taurus archetypes obviously is the farmer. That's the pretty common one that you see when people talk about these archetypes. And that's because it represents Taurus's connection to nature and their nurturing qualities. So it highlights their patience, it highlights their dedication to cultivating growth and stability. But it's not uncommon for me to see a lot of people who are in the restaurant industry, the floral industry, even in anything kind of connected to building, you know, building, growing, kind of, you know, bringing something to life. That's all very Taurus. So it doesn't have to be limited just to the farmer. But I definitely see people who are into cooking or working with herbs or working with plants in other fashions also kind of connected to Taurus as well. Their other archetype would be the lover, which is surprising because some of you guys will be like, wait, isn't that Gemini? If you think about the tarot, you know, the lover is connected to Gemini, but really it's the Hierophant that's connected to Taurus. And I think that that's about that traditional kind of committed, where you're at in society, you know, church and kind of your status. That's that connection. But it is the lover as well, because they're ruled by Venus. So it's a very significant part of their archetype. I feel like they're deeply connected to their physical senses and appreciate beauty in all forms. I like to compare Taurus and Libra. I think of Taurus as being the natural beauty, right? They don't need all the bells and the whistles. They don't need all of the extras. They have a tendency, if you have a really strong Taurus presence in your chart, or a Taurus rising, or even Venus in Taurus, or a second house stellium, naturally without all of the extras, they're going to be very beautiful. And I also think that this is about appreciating beauty, like sculptures and museums and art pieces and anything that's beautiful that can be made or built with natural materials, or flowers or anything like that. They love all of that stuff because it's connection to Venus. Now they're also seen as the artist, which I really resonate with. I have a lot of Tauruses in my life. I have a lot of clients that are Tauruses. And I like the archetype of the artist because it's connected to not only their appreciation for beauty, but creativity as well. And it often manifests in their artistic pursuits. They have a talent for creating and enjoying art in all forms. But because Taurus is connected to the throat, I see a lot of really prominent singers who have a really strong second or Taurus kind of placement, especially because it's about expressing beauty in vocal form. But they love art. They love anything that can be beautiful or enhancing kind of your atmosphere, your scenery. That's definitely their thing. But they're also known as the builder, okay? So I have a lot of clients also who have a lot of Taurus in their chart or second house placements that are architects or contractors, or maybe they're sculptors, because Taurus is about bringing things into physical form. So when I think about the archetype of the builder, I think about their practical and determined nature and making them excellent at building and maintaining structures, whether that's, you know, physical or metaphorical. They are the foundation which things are built upon. Well, that's true when you think about the second house. You know, that's the first earth placement in, you know, in the chart, even if it's in a different sign. It represents this solid stability, right? And kind of stocky, and like what you actually can have that you can kind of build on. So they have the ability to kind of conceptualize, okay, what can we create? Here are the materials we have. Here are the seeds. What kind of a garden can we grow? Here is all the lumber, you know, let's figure out and orchestrate, you know, the plans to be able to build a home. That's very much the energy of Taurus. And they're also seen as the protector, although, you know, Leo may say that they're the protector as well. I think with Taurus's loyalty and steadfastness, it makes them a natural protector. They're willing to defend their loved ones and their values at all costs. Now, these are just a few of the archetypes connected with Taurus. I'm sure there's many more. If you guys have any more, feel free to list them below in the comment section. Now let's talk about the sun, moon, and rising, the difference between the sun, moon, and rising when we're looking at Taurus placements. Well, I've said this before and I'll say it again. It can be very difficult to spot someone's sun, moon, or rising just by looking at them, because you have to take all of the aspects in the chart into consideration. Not everything is going to be visible, but there are certain signs and appearances that you can kind of look for, certain signatures and characteristics that might come through that's going to be a little bit more telling. I feel like for me personally, this is one of the signs that I feel like I can really recognize in the ascendant or the moon, just personally. So when we think about the Taurus sun, we'll start with the sun first. Remember that the sun is the core personality, right? So when you look at the chart, all the planets are revolving around the sun. So if the sun is in Taurus, they're going to exude that energy of kind of Venus. It's connected to their identity and also their life force energy. So individuals who have a Taurus sun have a tendency to be very grounded. They're practical. They have a need for stability and security and material success. You'll see them as kind of movers and shakers and people who are productive and like focused on accumulating or being able to build something. You'll notice that they're going to be a little bit more determined, I think, than some of the other placements. And also they may be a little bit more patient. Taurus suns are extremely loyal, in my opinion. These are people who, once they've got something going that works for them relationship-wise, they will stick it out and they'll stick it through thick and thin. And they're often very sensual. And these are people who you will notice may fixate a little bit more on the resources, the money, comfort, luxury, right? They're going to be the ones because their sun is tied up in what I'm able to accumulate, what I'm able to build, what I possess. And not because they're materialistic, but it's a symbol of what they're working hard for. So if you have a Taurus sun or even sun in the second house, you may exude some of these qualities. Now for the Taurus moon, this is a little different. Obviously the moon is exalted in Taurus, as I said. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the moon sign represents your emotional world, okay? So this is about your instincts, this is your home, this is your roots, this is your subconscious mind. I always say that the moon really represents your true inner nature, where if you're home alone and nobody can see you, this is who you really are on the inside. So Taurus moons represent an individual who has a deep need for emotional security and stability. They can become more fixated on concepts connecting to home, family, security, safety, the past. And these individuals are likely to be very attached to their possessions and have a strong desire for comfort. Emotionally, they're super sweet. These are lovers. These are people who are often very generous, very warm. They can be very committed and connected to their family as well. I find that they have a very nurturing and calming presence. But when it comes to matters of the heart, right, they can also be a little stubborn because that moon is connected to, emotional security. So they may be more reluctant to moving or leaving home or making dramatic changes within the home or within the family. These are also people who have beautiful homes and families. They have well-decorated spaces, high quality everything, beautiful atmosphere, and also just well decorated all around. They have a natural kind of touch for being able to bring a space together wherever they find themselves. And then we have the Taurus risings, which, like I said, I think are the easiest ones to spot. Personally, I can always spot one. You know, Taurus risings are not the tallest people, okay? You can take degree theory into consideration. Sometimes if you have something at like a 9 or a 21, they might be a little bit taller. But I find that Taurus risings are generally shorter. They also have a very strong and sturdy build, and they just look kind of solid. Sometimes they can look kind of stocky, but they look kind of solid. I find that also they can sometimes have wider set eyes. When we think of, like, you know, cows, they have the wider eyes, and very kind of like soft and kind of doughy-eyed and loving. They generally have a prominent forehead, fuller lips, and expressive eyes that will have a range of emotions. So even if the lower part of their face doesn't move so much, their eyes will. Their facial features are often very attractive. They're kind of smoothed out, and they can also have just striking appearances. This is one of the 2 signs ruled by Venus. So these tend to be people who are particularly good looking. They could roll out of bed and they look awesome and ready to go. They tend to have a good sense of style, often choosing clothing and accessories that complement their physical appearance, giving them a very polished and well put together look. Additionally, Taurus risings may have thicker hair that can range from straight to curly, but generally I notice that it's pretty textured, and I can tell it's them based also off of their voice. They have a very charming, appealing voice. It's something where you could be around a crowd of people or in a bar and you hear somebody talking and you're like, oh, like, what's that? You know, you just notice them. They can have a little bit of like a broader neck as well. I have found that Taurus risings will wear jewelry because second house has connections to jewels. So it doesn't matter if they're a man or a woman. You'll catch them with like a really pretty necklace, or they'll have like a string of beads on, or they'll have some jewelry on their wrists. They tend to like accessories. They tend to smell amazing because Taurus is connected to the senses, right? What smells good, tastes good. So you can always spot them because they will generally have a really nice natural scent, or they will have a high-end perfume or cologne on. But yeah, generally known for their calming presence and their ability to just kind of like get along with everyone. You know, like there is this kind of like soft and like loving kind of tendency with all Taurus placements, but I really noticed this with Taurus risings, just easygoing and yeah, fun to be around. Now let's talk planets in Taurus, okay? So I'm sure some of you guys are like, I'm not a Taurus, but I have planets in Taurus. So there's going to be certain planets that are going to perform better in Taurus than others, and I want to touch on that before we get into the whole master list. So first of all, obviously ruled by Venus, right? So being that it's ruled by Venus, Venus represents love, relationships, beauty, and material pleasures. So if you have a strong Venusian influence in your chart, Venus in the 2nd, Venus in Taurus, you know, a bunch of planets in the 2nd or the 7th, you're going to find that you have much more of a sensual, artistic, you know, enjoying the finer things in life type of vibe. The moon also is exalted in Taurus, and so this means that it operates at its highest potential in this sign. Think about it like this. The moon is the fastest moving planet that we look at in astrology. It's changing signs roughly every 2.5 days, and it is erratic in its nature. Taurus is stable, right? And it's consistent and it's sweet and loving. So the moon loves being in Taurus. I feel like it's also really great for emotional stability, people who are going to be a little bit more kind of calm and mellow, nurturing qualities, and a good, solid, natural connection to the physical world. Now, for planets that are in detriment or in fall, these are planets that do not perform as well in this particular sign. Now, the planet that is in detriment in Taurus is Pluto, and that's because Pluto rules Scorpio. You guys don't have to really worry about this, but I'll tell you anyway because we have not had Pluto in Taurus anywhere in our lifetime. But Pluto in Taurus brings transformative energies to personal values, right? So we think about Pluto as being like this major transformation and ending and rebirthing of cycles. So if this were to move through the sign of Taurus, it's going to be more difficult to process that Pluto energy. There can be issues pertaining to personal values, possessions, and the environment. And it usually leads to a lot of upheavals in these areas, leading to some kind of growth and empowerment. That's what Pluto is here to do. But like I said, you guys don't have to worry about that in your lifetime or anytime soon. And then we have the planet Uranus. So Uranus is in its fall in Taurus. This is important now for those of you guys who have kids that have, been born recently the last couple of years or now. It's also important for everybody who's experiencing this Uranus in Taurus transit. We've had this the last couple of years. We think about Uranus as being kind of like a bomb that goes off, right? It's unreliable, unpredictable. You think it's going to go left, it goes right. So having Uranus in Taurus, it does bring a desire for change and innovation in areas relating to Taurus, like personal values and the environment and banking and resources and food. But it also can lead to some pretty sudden and dramatic shifts in financial or personal values. So, out of the world, we've been seeing this transit and we've seen lots of ups and downs with the markets, with inflation, with food costs, also with a lot of environmental concerns. So it's definitely been doing its thing. I feel like it's not comfortable because we don't see stability for love and money with Uranus and Taurus. It causes disruptions, which Taurus does not like. So yeah, that's the breakdown of where planets are going to best perform and also have some of its challenges. Now let's get into the planets in general. Obviously, if you have any of these planets in Taurus, it's going to give you a little bit more information about how that's going to be performing. When I look at the astrology chart of someone, I always look at things this way. The sign is like the lens which the planet is going to present itself, okay? So the house is where things are taking place. The sign is how it's expressed, and the planet is going to add a little bit more extra oomph or kind of action, and you have to look at what that planet represents. So let's start first with Venus. So let's say you have Venus in Taurus. First of all, you have Venus in its domicile, right? So it's at home, it's comfortable. It basically means that when it comes to beauty and material possessions and resources, you're solid. People who have a strong Venusian influence here are often very artistic, very sensual, well-dressed. They appreciate the finer things in life. And they have a tendency to be quite loyal and consistent and committed in love. And it can be better for relationships and money if you have this placement, depending on the other aspects. Now the moon, like I said, which is exalted here, is operating in its highest potential. So it's going to be bringing luxury and comfort and beauty into your private life, your home, your family. There is a strong connection to the physical world, but also it can be real estate, it can be property, it can be interior design, building, architecture, anything like that. I know a number of clients, who have moon in Taurus, in the 4th house or in the 2nd house involved in property or real estate. I know a number of clients also who have, moon in the 2nd house, who has like a family business that's connected to interior design. So that can definitely be a theme when you're seeing that exalted moon in this particular placement. Now the sun, like I said, it's more about stability and practicality. So I think this is one of the placements that the sun is going to be actually like very strong, highlighting the importance of self-worth and also personal values and material security. So often we talk about Taurus as, oh, just possessions and money and resources, but not a lot of people talk about self-worth. The second house really teaches us, or Taurus energy, that we have to invest in ourselves. We have to know our value. We have to know what we're capable of bringing to the table. So in knowing that and nurturing those qualities, we're actually able to find what we're best at and make a living off of it, or find a way to love what we're actually doing. So we're doing work that we enjoy, so we're able to have the life that we enjoy. Now, Mercury in Taurus, right? Mercury being connected to the mind, it's communication. It is also associated with business and travel or learning. So Mercury being here has an influence on communication and mental processes, and it makes them, I think, a little bit more practical, more persistent when it comes to gaining tangible results, because Taurus is about what we're able to kind of accumulate. So people with Mercury and Taurus may be slow to change their opinions, but are reliable and consistent in their thinking. They may love to write about or talk about food. They may be really big into assessing, financial graphs and charts and markets. They may be really great at doing business because, we've got Mercury in the sign of Taurus, so they may be interested in an art business or a financial business, a food business. And they have a tendency to talk kind of slow, or they can be long-winded in their communications and really feel the need to kind of get it all out. Now, Mars in Taurus can be a little bit difficult because of Mars's traditional association with Scorpio. So one thing I would say is that Mars in Taurus can be very determined and persistent. Okay, I'll give them credit for this. But they can have a tendency to be possessive. They can have a tendency to be very resistant to change. There can also be some stubbornness here of being like, no, I want to do it my way. And that can cause some kind of conflict and issues there. When we think of Mars, especially because it's such a linear planet, it's about getting up and going. Mars in Taurus, it's like a train. It takes time for it to kind of speed up and throw the coal in the engine. But once they get going, you don't stop them. So they may take longer to complete tasks, but once they get into it, they have a lot of stamina. It may take them a while to really pursue somebody, but once they do, it's like there's no stopping them. They also have a tendency to really emphasize the importance of taking action to secure material and financial stability. So Mars can be this energy that's also about defending or protecting. So we'll see them really be all about, protecting their resources and making sure that they're kind of setting everything up in a way where it cannot be taken away from them. Now, Jupiter in Taurus, if you have Jupiter in Taurus, we're actually experiencing this right now. We're gonna have some pretty sweet Jupiter transits in the next week or two, but Jupiter in Taurus encourages growth and expansion in areas relating to material wealth. So we think about Jupiter, right? God of abundance, travel, philosophy, it's about bringing us more, about also expansion, how we see the world and what we're kind of bringing in. Personal values and self-esteem as well gets kind of factored into Taurus, so they may talk or teach about these things in a very practical way, or they make money doing that. These might also be people who foster a love for learning and exploring new ideas as long as they align with their core values, right? So I've seen people who make money teaching with Jupiter and Taurus. I've seen people who make money in travel, or maybe they're in publishing. That's something I've seen a lot of. And they may know a lot of information, or they may be very knowledgeable about Taurus related things. So these are people who have an understanding of world economics, or maybe they understand more in a practical manner about religious or philosophical kind of topics. These can also be people who have larger than life appetites. They might want to consume a lot, or they collect a lot. There can also be a tendency to be very fixated on teaching art or anything kind of connected to aesthetics. I've seen a lot of people who are in the cosmetic industry who have that as well. And then we have Saturn in Taurus. So we think of Saturn's archetype of, commitment, maturity, boundaries, borders, kind of growing up. So we're putting Saturn in Taurus, and I see this a couple different ways. Let's start with the positive. The positive is that we do see in some practices of astrology that Venus and Saturn love each other very much. After all, we do see Saturn exalted in Libra. But when we put Saturn in Taurus, one thing I've seen, regardless of the placement, there can be this challenge, right? Because just, Saturn will challenge us and it will say, well, are you good at this thing? And then you have to go through the Saturn method of trying and trying again before you realize, okay, I can master this. Mastering issues relating to money or relating to self-worth or self-esteem. That's the big thing that I see all of the time. So you may feel like, you have challenges relating to financial stability and self-worth, but I feel like the positive is that oftentimes it teaches these people the importance of discipline, responsibility, and building a solid foundation for long-term success. No different than a Saturn, transit in the second house where people have to learn, well, I have to budget, or I'm doing with less, or I'm practicing minimalism, or I'm learning to cut back on something. I think Saturn in Taurus is great for people who want to have a really solid foundational understanding of building and creating things, and whether that's building a garden or learning how to kind of build in your financial health. It can also be about learning the foundations of cooking or learning the foundations of anything connected with constructing something. I've seen a lot of like carpenters who have this placement as well. And a lot of people who are involved in, like I said, agriculture or anything kind of connected to like building structures, like architects. And then we've got Uranus in Taurus, like I said, which brings innovation and change. Sure, that's why we've seen all this like lab-grown meat and, they want to ban cows. That's Uranus in Taurus for environmental reasons. But we also see with this that there can be radical, sudden shifts to values and material possessions. It can be about communal building and communal meals, and it can be about kind of revolutionizing things kind of connected to banking or art. Certainly Uranus and Taurus has been big for like crypto. We've also seen all the NFT stuff that's very much connected to creating art in a digital space, Uranus and Taurus. But it leads to shifts in financial situations and personal values, which can be liberating for some people where they realize, I don't want to be spending money on all this stuff anymore. I have more freedom if I'm not consuming. That in itself is more valuable to me. I think that's been what a lot of people have been realizing. But it can also create a lot of instability with finances where money comes in and it goes out very rapidly. Let's say you have the North Node in Taurus, right? So that North Node is about your drive and your direction and what you're here to kind of learn in this particular lifetime. So with the North Node in Taurus, it's representing the lessons and experiences that you're meant to focus on this time around. So it's going to emphasize the need to cultivate stability and patience and appreciation for the material physical world. It encourages you to develop a strong sense of security, self-worth, grounding, as well as appreciation for beauty and pleasure in all the simple things in life. These are people who want to look at where is Venus in your natal chart. That's going to help you kind of come into your North Node in Taurus. But it's taking time to smell the roses. It's having a picnic in the grass. It's learning how to be more, self-sustainable. Can you make things or build things yourself? Can you cook your own meals, right? Do you actually have a strong sense of values? Are you taking time to have pleasurable experiences? These are all things that you should be doing with the North Node in Taurus. Now, if you have the South Node in Taurus, this indicates that in your past life, you've done a lot of these Taurian things, right? Your North Node would then be in Scorpio. So you've developed a strong sense of security and wealth. You've done that in the past, and it can manifest in this lifetime as deep attachments to material possessions and financial stability or financial comfort or desire for comfort. The challenge here, I think, with the South Node in Taurus is to let go of over-reliance on material security and focus on spiritual growth and personal development, right? North Node in Scorpio. I always say that like second house energy or Taurus is like what I build, what I am able to generate, what I create. And then Scorpio 8th house energy is what I receive from other people. So because you guys have done a lot of that building in your own, in this lifetime, it may be hard for you to break away from your, material possessions or creature comforts, but you're learning to go through some significant change and you're learning how to receive or transform how you look at your resources. Obviously, for you guys, you want to be looking at where Mars and Pluto is in your chart. That's going to kind of help you find your North Node. And then as a reminder, Neptune and Pluto does not really apply. Nobody who's alive right now has experienced either one of these placements. I already went into Pluto, so I'm not going to waste too much time going into Pluto or Neptune. But because of the cycles of these particular planets, it's not something that we're going to be experiencing. It's not going to be in anybody's natal charts. Now, what about the second house in astrology? So if you guys saw my Aries video, I did one on Aries and one on the first house. This one I'm kind of combining the two because of my content schedule this week. But I want to talk a little bit about the second house before I let you guys go. So in astrology, everybody's going to have a different second house. So you want to look at your ascendant sign. That's your first house. Your second house is going to be the one that's after that. And yes, there is a connection with the second house and Taurus, but it's going to be different depending on what your rising sign is. You know, like I said, the second house has that connection with physical values, resources, and self-worth. It's known as the house of value traditionally. It represents things that are our value to us, like money, possessions, and also our basic human needs. But it can also include our personal resources and self-worth. So oftentimes this particular house is also emotional security, and it deals with the practical aspects of our lives, such as income, assets, and our attitude towards them. So with Taurus being a sign connected to material possessions, obviously this is going to kind of align depending on what sign you have on your second house. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about planets in the second house so you can have a better understanding of, okay, now we know how Taurus energy works, but what about the second house? Second house rules things like your bank account, your resources, how you're making money, how you're spending money. It's also how you have a tendency to dress. Second house is very much connected to your style. So the sign there is going to have an influence on that. Planets there are going to have an influence on that. And the second house, just generally overall, I will say this is a house that can talk about the food preferences that you have, you know, what you like to eat, how you like to eat. It can also talk about the kind of possessions that you have, your attitude towards them. It is common when you see stellium of planets in the second house. These are collectors. These are people who work in finances or building or resources. This can also be people who have a number of skills, which can be very valuable because the second house can represent what values we have. And they can have very strong opinions when it comes to their personal values here as well. Collectors is something that I see a lot. Like somebody who has a lot of planets in the second house, I see collectors. I see people who are also involved in either finances or banking or in art, whether dealing or, you know, creating art or working in like the art world. I've also seen a lot of people who work, like I said, in like the culinary space who have a lot of placements in that house as well. So let's start first with the sun in the second house. So if you have the sun in the second house, this indicates a very strong and practical approach to earning and managing money. These individuals value quality over quantity, and they have a tendency to want to build wealth in a slow and steady manner. They see the value of money and resources. They like having quality, so they're not going to buy a bunch of things, or if they do buy something, it's going to generally be something that's going to last longer. They can be a little bit more materially oriented than some signs. This can also be a placement of somebody who has a tendency to be a little bit more stylish and might be like a collector of sorts. So it depends on what sign it is, but I've definitely seen that. Then we have the moon in the second house, okay? So when we think of the archetype of the moon, emotions, subconscious, home, family. So having the moon here is an individual who experiences fluctuations in financial conditions, potentially leading to a need to manage their finances more effectively. Now, these are also people who may make money through a home or a family business or something connected to home. It also might represent somebody who is very emotionally impacted by their resources, what they own, what they possess. And this can cause some kind of emotional stir depending on their financial situation. Still, you know, the moon in the second house is not a bad placement. It's kind of mirroring that moon in Taurus a little bit. This is generally somebody who's very practical and very grounded when it comes to approaching their needs and recognizing that emotions come up if they're not feeling safe or secure. Now, the Mercury in the second house, okay, so if you have that placement, this is an individual who earns through communication or writing or intellectual pursuits. So second house, resources and money. Mercury is the mind, so it can be blogging, writing, teaching, you know, traveling. Obviously, it depends on the aspects in the sign, but they can also be very fixed in how they communicate or what they believe, or when it comes to communicating or sharing ideas about their resources or their values. Now, if you have Venus in the second house, this is a great placement because Venus loves to be in the second or the seventh. And this suggests that you may be an individual with a strong appreciation for beauty, art, comfort, and this potentially leads to a focus on earning money through an artistic or an aesthetic kind of way. I've seen a lot of people who are involved in like business partnerships or like client relationships that have Venus in the second house. I've also seen a lot of people who are in cosmetics and fashion and working with I would say like perfumes or other things that are kind of connected to that. That's definitely a theme that I've seen. I've seen a lot of artists with this placement. I've seen a lot of singers and other like musicians that have this placement here as well. Generally really good style also. That's something else that I'll say. And they really love jewelry with Venus in the second house. So what about Mars in the second house? All right, so we think about the archetype of Mars, which is passion and burning and movement, and it's quick and it's very entrepreneurial. These are positive things that I would say about Mars in the second house. I've seen a lot of people who have these placements that are very entrepreneurial with this. And they are generally individuals who have a strong drive and energy for making money, potentially leading to a focus in earning money through physical or competitive means. But these are also people who would benefit from putting their credit cards away. They can make money just as fast as they spend money. And likely a lot of the people here are working hard to be able to kind of upkeep the lifestyle that they like. They can also be a little bit possessive about things. It can be like, that's mine. So it can be harder for some of these individuals sometimes to share. They can also be fiercely protective of their resources or of their values, and they can definitely take a little bit more time because slow and steady wins the race with the second house. And Mars here is saying, okay, I'm more focused on kind of long-term accumulation rather than doing it all at one time. So they can be a little bit more practical when it comes to what they're actually buying or consuming. I have found that these are people also who may invest in like collections of things. So, you know, they might have like a very competitive edge to their business, and people who generally might like spicy food. That's something else I find with Mars in the second house. So if we have Jupiter in the second house, okay, so generally this is an individual who has the potential for financial expansion and growth, potentially leading to a focus in earning money through teaching, philosophy, or other expansive pursuits. Now we see that sometimes with, you know, Jupiter and Taurus in the ninth, but really here I find that these are people who are like art collectors. These are people who might, you know, make money through teaching something about art or beauty or cosmetics. I've seen sculptors who have this. I've seen people who build multi-million-dollar homes who have Jupiter here. I've seen people who are making quite a bit of money, you know, running their own organic farms or teaching other people about agriculture as well, or they have like an import-export business, especially relating to agriculture or food, or also they have connections to, believe it or not, being involved in like passing laws or being involved in like government. When it comes to like, you know, building requirements and, you know, working with the city and like planning and zoning. I've seen people who have that here as well because Jupiter is, you know, associated with like laws and rules. So, you know, that's a good placement. I think Jupiter in the second in general can be a much more abundant life when it comes to resources, feeling more kind of financially blessed. But especially with Jupiter, if you have Jupiter and Taurus in the second, that can be like extra, extra sweet. And then finally, we have Saturn in the second house. So Saturn in the second house can be a little difficult. Like I said, Saturn in Taurus in general, I've seen people who kind of struggle with realizing their worth. But Saturn in the second house can go one of a couple ways. So the positive is that these people can be minimalist. Like they know how to get by with very little. These may be people who are also self-made. So that's something I see a lot with this placement. But it has a very significant impact on their financial circumstances, also their self-esteem and their values. So it brings a sense of like seriousness and responsibility or practicality when it comes to their finances in life. You know, individuals with this placement might prioritize stability and also security and long-term growth over short-term gains or impulsive spending. This position encourages them to have a deeper understanding of their worth and the value of things. These are generally people who are going to be like, that's too expensive. I'm not buying that. you know, or I'm going to wait till it goes on sale, or we don't need that, or less is more. Let's get rid of things. We don't need more things. We need less. And they are truly, like I said, they're truly minimalists. And I think they do that not just because there is a sense of wanting to conserve money, but they are very acutely aware and in tune with their value system, and they know what is worth kind of splurging on and what is not. These are also people who have dramatic shifts in regards to their financial, well-being once there's this shift when it comes to their self-worth, and they realize what they bring to the table, that they are good enough, they are productive enough, they are, you know, successful or talented. And then there's like this switch that flips, and then all of a sudden they're like, you know what, I'm going to charge more, or, you know, I'm going to stop giving away my work for free, or, you know, I've worked too hard for this, I'm going to build it myself. And they can be very, very entrepreneurial with this placement. If you have Neptune in the second house, okay, so Neptune, dreamy, whimsical, spiritual, otherworldly, but this can also be a little tricky because this is sometimes a placement where I see people who can not see resources or money so clearly, or sometimes they're not sure of what their values are, or money can kind of go missing. On the other hand, this can indicate a very spiritual and imaginative approach to earning money. So this could also be artistic, but it can also be kind of unsure or trying to figure out, you know, what's the best means of, you know, trying to find work that they are kind of aligned with. There can definitely be confusion or disillusionment regarding finances or possessions. These can be the people who are like, I thought I had enough in the bank, and like, you know, a check is bouncing. This can also be people who are like, I don't really know if I value this anymore. Why did I spend so much money on it, you know? It can also signify a desire to use one's resources for compassionate or artistic pursuits. I've seen lots of people here who have this placement that work in film or in the industry, or they do cinematography, or they're doing photography because of that connection with Neptune. I've also seen people who want to start nonprofits, or they want to do something where there is some kind of give back, where they're helping those who are less fortunate or those who are in need. These are also very selfless individuals. Neptune in the second house will have a tendency to just give endlessly to other people, sometimes, you know, to a fault where they don't realize that they're not holding or keeping enough for themselves. Now, if you have Uranus in the second house, this is fun. It definitely brings a sense of like unpredictability or being unconventional when it comes to your financial life. You may be more open-minded when it comes to, you know, alternative, I guess, currencies or cryptocurrency, or maybe you're very like unconventional when it comes to how you're making money. You know, maybe you're an astrologer, I don't know. This can be a placement that can bring lots of sudden changes and unexpected opportunities relating to money and possessions as well. So when Uranus is in this position, it can indicate a need for financial freedom and an interest, I think, in innovative or non-traditional ways of earning a living. When we think about Uranus, it's like sudden, and it really, here you really want to look at what sign it's in, but I've seen people who have Uranus in the second house who have like lost and won $1 million several times in their life. I've seen lottery winners with it. I've seen people who have rags to riches stories. I've seen people who have inherited a ton of money and then years later they've lost it. It really depends, but I also think this is a very entrepreneurial placement because of that connection with Uranus and things that are unconventional and futuristic, and people who also may see future trends and things worthy of getting invested in or things worthy of buying because they may actually kind of like become more valuable down the road. This can be a little bit more of a difficult placement because it does represent a lot of instability and also lots of shifts when it comes to the way that you look at money. And what I have found with people with this placement is that when they get used to the ebbs and the flows and the unpredictability, they actually learn how to manage and maintain or invest their money differently, so that way they can kind of ride the waves of like when stuff kind of comes and goes. And then finally, we've got Pluto in the second house. So when Pluto's in the second house, this definitely intensifies, right? Pluto brings some sense of like obsession or fixation or power. It can be powerful. Lots of people who have Pluto in the second house can be incredibly wealthy, but it intensifies the themes of money, possessions, and values. So it can be positive, where it can lead to some major transformation of your resources. This can also be people who have made money you know, when they were down and out, okay? This can be people who their money has actually come from inheritances. This can also be people who are too tightly attached to their resources. People who can be obsessed with the idea of being wealthy. People who are obsessed with the idea of obtaining everything. I've seen placements here that have issues with hoarding. I've seen placements here that have issues also with obsessive compulsive issues pertaining to spending or sometimes food or money. And it's definitely somebody who is also very sensual. So Pluto has that connection to, you know, the reproductive organs. It's connected to Scorpio. So Pluto being in the second house can be like, well, how much is too much? You know, when it comes to pleasure, when it comes to eating, or when it comes to spending, certainly like the seven sins can very much apply to all of those things in the second house if people are not careful. But the power of Pluto here is about learning to transform your resources and learning how to maybe invest or make more, or when you get something from other people, you're able to kind of build upon that and totally transform structures even. So I've seen a lot of people who do like renovations and rebuilding, or they flip homes and things like that, or they see opportunities to invest in things while they're kind of at the bottom with this placement. So I hope that's helpful in giving you guys a little bit more insight into Taurus, better understanding Taurus, how to kind of see this archetypally out in the world, and how to better apply Taurus planets or the second house when it comes to your own chart. Do you have any personal planets in Taurus? I'd love to hear your stories. Let me know what your creature comforts are and what you do for a living. Equally, if you have a stellium of anything in the second house, I'd love to hear from you guys as well. I'm a natal stellium in the second house. I got 4 planets in the second house. So I always tell people I'm like an undercover Taurus. I even look like a Taurus because my sun's in the second house, but I'm actually a Scorpio. So let me know if you guys like this video. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will catch you guys all back here next time on Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.